us through it.
I think, like many Americans, when we heard the news starting to come out of Atlanta in the first minutes, I hate to say this, Jennifer, but one of my first thoughts was, oh, look, America is actually getting back to normal because we're starting to get mass shootings in the news. That means we're starting to get ahead of
Yeah.
COVID. Isn't that wonderful? But then as the story evolved, it took an even more sinister turn.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we have a clip for this, so I'm just going to save anything that I have to say about that until after you play the clip.
Okay, we're going to roll the first clip. If you're not aware of what happened in Atlanta, or I don't know where you've been, but if you haven't, let's roll that first clip.
8 people were killed in the city and at least 1 wounded in those attacks yesterday night, and at least half of the victims are believed to be Asian women. The suspect, arrested 150 miles away after a chase, is a white man. His name is Robert Aaron Long. That is his picture there. Mark Strassman is at one of the crime scenes in Atlanta. Mark, this story is so troubling and terrifying at the same time. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Gail. 3 of the women were killed at the Gold Spa behind me. Police say it's too soon to tell whether victims were targeted because of their race. But these shootings do come during a pandemic-era surge in hate crimes against Asian Americans.
So that lays the framework, right, Jennifer? And
Yeah.
part of the story is he was arrested almost 200 miles away,
Yeah.
engaged the police in a high-speed chase. His vehicle was actually identified by security cameras at one of the places where he killed people. And the police had to engage in a pit maneuver, essentially had to wreck his car to end the high-speed chase. I bring that up because one of the things that I saw in the commentariat, and I know I always tell people, don't read the comments, but, you know, the commentariat was, well, he's still alive because he didn't resist arrest. Jennifer, I seem to remember that the police kind of defined, we ran this story Monday about a black man in Louisiana who led police in a high-speed chase and then voluntarily laid down on the ground, and they still beat the shit out of him. As a matter of fact, the 4 officers that beat the shit out of him are in jail tonight.
Yeah, no, and the thing of it is, too, I'm sorry, but can I just say that mugshot screams supremacist incel?
No, I think you can go ahead and say this is a free fire zone. And, and I don't think that it's too far off base, Jennifer, to suggest, as we're learning more about this person, that he is incel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, I'm gonna because this next clip you're going to play is incensing. So I'm going to save my commentary for after that particular clip.
Yes. So, of course, everybody wants to know news. And yesterday morning, Captain Jay Baker, Public Information Officer of the Cherokee County Sheriff's Department in Georgia, had this to say.
The suspect did take responsibility for the shootings. He said that early on once we began the interviews with him. He claims that these, and as the chief said, this is still early, but he does claim that it was not racially motivated. He apparently has an issue, what he considers a sex addiction, and sees these locations as something that allows him to go to these places, and it's a temptation for him that he wanted to eliminate. Like I said, it's still early on, but those were comments that he made.
Did he discuss any kind of religious motivation for this, or was he responsible?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of.
Or political?
None political. I've heard nothing about politics.
Any sense of his social media history? Is that something you've been able to look at?
That's something that investigators, they've been working on all along, and that's certainly one of the things they'll be doing.
Sheriff, did you have a sense that he understood the gravity of what he did?
When I spoke with investigators, they interviewed him this morning, and they got that impression that yes, he understood the gravity of it, and he was pretty much fed up and kind of at the end of his rope, and yesterday was a really bad day for him, and this is what he did.
Remorseful?
I'm not going to go to. I don't know if he was remorseful or not.
Really bad day. Really? It's an interesting choice of words. Really bad day. He had a really bad... The shooter, Jennifer, the shooter had a really bad day.
Oh, no, no, no. It gets worse. That was the most apologetic cue ball disguised as a person that I've ever seen for that kind of behavior. Because not only is he saying, oh, he had an off day, he's sympathizing with him, talking about how this was a temptation for him. And that's why he behaved in the way that he did. And so people started asking about religious and political affiliations. He didn't say anything. Is he remorseful? We're not going to get into that. So this, young white man who looks like a white supremacist incel, if there was a poster child for one, basically went to places that he thought he felt some degree of temptation, which leads to us to, thinking about the ways in which Asian women in particular are fetishized within white European culture and have been for hundreds of years. And this dude just stood up there and basically apologized for his behavior.
Oh, and it gets worse, Jennifer. It just gets so much icky and worse because there's part of me when I heard that. I mean, we did a TikTok video on this yesterday. We actually did 2 on Captain Jay Baker because, oh my goodness, Captain Jay Baker, people did some digging on him after he made this comment because the whole thing was gross. And I agree with every word you said. It was totally apologetic. And then I'm listened to it, Jennifer, 5 times because I'm trying to wrap my head around, is he saying the suspect within interrogation said he had a bad day and he is just kind of repeating what the suspect... Oh, no. Oh, no. Because we have this, Jennifer. Oh, Jennifer, your head's a little cut off on this shot, but there's nothing we can do about it right now. We have this. And this is Captain Jay Baker's Facebook page, where on April 2nd, 2020, he was praising these T-shirts, critical of the COVID response, and referring to it as a virus from another country. I can't say what it is because we'll get knocked off the air if we go ahead and repeat. And Jennifer, what's horrifying to me, where I'm going to call out Zuckerberg, and I'm this close to dropping the F-bomb, is that post was still up yesterday, even after being up on April 2nd. But if we were to say it on the air, we'd get taken down. Not that there's any inherent bias in how social media is managed, but guess what we learned this morning, Jennifer? Captain Jay Baker decided to take his Facebook page down.
Oh, what a shocker. What a shocker. After he just sympathized with a mass murderer who targeted particularly Asian women. And he posts on his Facebook page sympathy about or, critiques of the coronavirus and attributed it to a specific country is where I'm, sure that is relative. But it's so absolutely disgusting. And it just goes back to the same thing that we talk about week after week after week. And that is systemic racism, racism in, power, positions of power, in authority, racism within the judicial system, racism within the police, racism within the government. In all of the upper echelons of power are constructed around systemic racism.
Abso-friggin-lutely. I almost did it. I'm really trying to stay in the lanes on this one. And wait a minute, Malcontent, because I know some of you in the comments have been going, hey, are you going to get into this? And we've been doing that. The Cherokee County Sheriff's Department released a statement early afternoon their time, late morning our time, basically saying that Captain Baker had poor choice of words, didn't mean to offend anybody. All options in the investigation are still on the table, but they stand beside Captain Baker and the service that he has done there for the county. And you just nailed it about inherent bias. Captain Baker took an oath to protect and serve. Full stop. Yeah. The Supreme Court says the police don't actually protect and serve. Look that one up because that is 100% true. How is the Asian community in Cherokee County, Georgia, going to have any faith in any police officer in that county after those words yesterday and the revelation that
It's a cannibalistic humanoid underground dweller.
and that's exactly what Captain Baker is.
Yeah, he's disgusting. And there's so much irony in all of this. For one thing, they're in Cherokee County, Georgia. I just can't even like.
I knew you were gonna like. I knew that would just add to the rage.
But yeah, I mean, how are you supposed to feel about, if you're not already terrified of the police force in this particular county as a person of color? You sure the fuck are now. Excuse me. You sure are now. Like, this dude just stood up there and defended a mass murderer by saying he had a bad day and he was just trying to quell a temptation he had.
Yes, exactly. Now, we could stand up here and talk about this all night long. We have an interview. We actually talked with the chair of API Chaya, which is an organization that was formed to protect and defend Asia and Pacific Islanders from human trafficking, violence, and from domestic violence, as well as racism. And Jennifer, I'd like to roll that interview.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
We're with Tarul Kode Tripathi of API Chaya. Tarul, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us about API Chaya and what your organization does.
API Chaya is a local nonprofit that's based out of Seattle, and our mission is really to empower survivors of gender-based violence and human trafficking.
Yesterday in the press conference with Public Information Officer Captain Jay Blake of the Cherokee County Sheriff's Department, he described the shooter as being at the end of his rope and having a bad day. When you heard that, what was your reaction?
I'm angry. It's like death by paper cuts, reading headlines about violence inflicted by white people on marginalized people. It's disgusting to me that we continue to read headlines like this.
United States culture has fetishized Asian women. What do you feel is the impact that this is having on perception of Asian, particularly Asian women?
I think what we can say is that it's absolutely real. We look at our history, we look at arts and film to see examples of how Asian women and Asian communities have been fetishized. I think it's time to stop kind of laughing about it and understanding the pain that this has inflicted on communities of people.
Yesterday, several publications ran stories about the 3 businesses where the shootings happened and implied that there was potentially illicit activity going on inside of these businesses. How do we get past veiled victim blaming?
Any type of explanation for why they were there, what they were doing, is just that. It's victim blaming. These were human beings who had families, they had lives. What makes their lives less important than mine or yours? It's a symptom of white supremacy, is what it is, to somehow find a way to blame them instead of bringing the focus back on the cause of this violence, and that is white supremacy, racism.
Yesterday, there was a record label that changed their profile picture to a yellow square, where it's actually encouraging other people to change their picture to a yellow square to show solidarity. There were people who were saying that this was performative. How do we turn the tragedy of Atlanta into something that's actually actionable for the Asian and Pacific Islander community?
What we need to do is look to the Asian and Pacific Islander community, specifically grassroots organizations that are already in existence. And we need to listen to them and we need to let them lead.
If somebody wanted support services from API Chaya, how would they get in contact with you?
The best way to get a hold of us at API Chaya is to either go to our website, apichaya.org. Our phone lines are open. We're at 1-877-922-4292. And we hope that you'll spread the message that we're here and we want to help and we stand in solidarity.
For someone who is watching this, what would you say are three things that they could do to educate themselves or realize the bias and microaggressions that they may be exhibiting that they're not even aware of?
I follow the lead of folks who are living these experiences. One of the greatest privileges for me to be a part of API Chaya is learning alongside our leadership team from our staff. They have a wealth of knowledge, and if not API Chaya, there are, thousands of other grassroots organizers out there to follow, and they are on the cusp of driving us to a better future. Follow the leaders, follow the people doing the work. If we're talking about Black Lives Matter, follow Black leaders. Why not open your heart and just listen to the experience of other people and just believe them?
Rex 206, I saw your comment. Captain Baker is not an elected official. He's a PIO. So he is just he's a captain, but he's essentially a street officer, an employee of the Cherokee County Sheriff's Department. And whoever runs that sheriff's department is fine with him being in a position of authority and sympathizing with mass murderers and having what appears to be racist tendencies. To answer your question, Rex 206. Jennifer, that was a great interview that we had earlier today. API Chaya does great work. They've been around for over 10 years, and it was fantastic to have them come on and share their thoughts about the events that had happened.
Yeah, no, and she makes, some really excellent points about, following those who are living these experiences and listening and following leaders within the community who are, of the community and really being allies, but also, going back to the, systems of white supremacy and the fetishization of Asian women in white culture. There were some really powerful points made in that particular clip.
She really did make some really powerful points. And, Jennifer, I'm an animation junkie. I love animation. Sometimes at night I will have South Park on in the background as just background noise. And having worked indirectly in broadcast off and on through the years, I totally get that scheduling happens weeks in advance. Comedy Central's schedule for South Park last night could not have been more unfortunate. And there were 2 episodes that aired in the background that I had on where I was just like, ew, because it just goes back to the stereotyping of Asian people and the message that is sent that it's like, well, it's okay. And it's not okay. And I think that something that people have to understand, because one of the things that I've heard, to give this analogy, is people go, well, why can Black people use the N-word and I can't? I'm like, really? Do I have to explain this to you? It's like, I can crack Jewish jokes because I'm a Jew, but I can't crack Black jokes because I'm not Black. And there's so many people that just don't seem to understand that. And so they watch Asian sitcoms. They see Asian comedians like Margaret Cho, and I'm not bashing her because I think she's a fantastic individual. And I know that she stood up for LGBTQIA rights way before it was fashionable. But then people are like, oh, it must be okay, and I can adopt it.
Yeah, no. And I hate to say it, but it's usually white people who make those assumptions. Like, if somebody else can say it, why can't I? And I think it just goes back to not understanding the longer history of the nation, the longer history of discrimination and oppression, the ways in which language has been used to perpetuate that discrimination and oppression, in ways that were, when people from these communities adopt these words and, basically reclaim the power of that word, it's not acceptable for somebody that looks like me to go, okay, well, that person says it, so it's totally okay for me to say it. Language has been such a powerful colonizing tool that those words have like very strong historic and now even contemporary resonance. So, even though they may appear in songs or in comedy or in various forms of pop culture and media, it's still not something that white people should be picking up and saying because they feel entitled to do so.
Mediocrates, I saw your comment about the words about making sure to just listen and believe. That is something that I have appealed to our audience to do, going back to the earliest days of CHOP. The best thing, step one, if you're a white ally, this is what I'll tell you. Number one, you need to look in the mirror and go, you know what? I'm racist. And I'm going to talk more about that tonight at the end of the show. And then this, because I'm telling you, you're going to feel a weight come off your shoulders if you say it and you say it and you believe it. And then the next thing is to the path, just shut up and listen. Just listen and really listen. Not just listen, but hear. I think it's listen and hear. I think that's what I'm trying to get to. Jennifer, we'll keep tracking this story because, of course, this will be big news when it comes out of there. And we will see if officials in Georgia changed their tune on the position of, well, the shooter was just having a bad day.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold my breath.